So, good evening, everyone. So, this is the video for week 3. So, we would be discussing about biological explanations of crime in this. So, we would be discussing about how crime is conducted on a biological level, on a neuroscientific level, what goes into what thoughts are being processed in people's minds, why do they commit crime, and how is crime seen over the world on a biological level. So, biological theories of crime allowed criminologists to actually differentiate between the effects of environment or lived experience and also the genotype. Genotype also refers to as genetics, whether or not if the criminals who are committing a criminal activity are performing their acts based on their genes, if they are related to a criminal family or a criminal background. So that is the main reason or not. So we would be discussing about that too. So it also allowed um, scientists to how a person's genes react to the environment around them, what circumstances are we living in, that also depends and explains how crimes are conducted. And it also helps scientists to evaluate the impact of stress on the epigenome and how adverse experiences in childhood may also have lasting effects. So some of the criminals have been interviewed in the past, and they are also regarded as like they also say that this crime has been committed due to something that happened in their childhood which created a trauma in their brain. So it also biological theories also allow us to understand if what are the long-term benefits of childhood trauma, and also how trauma can be passed to the next generation. So let's say if someone has a trauma from the very beginning when they started to live, whether it could be school, home, childhood, whatever, and they grow up, and if they do not heal that trauma themselves, then it could also be passed on to their upcoming generations. They start to treat people according to their own trauma, according to how their mind work at what level. And it also allowed us to demonstrate the need to consider social implications of heritable factors in order to avoid systematic discrimination. Evaluate the protective factors valuable in treatment and intervention. So early biological explanations of crime is all behavior, including criminal behavior, were based exclusively on biology. No discussion of environmental influence. Sorry. And no basis in science. Politically, it was all like politically and racially motivated. That people of, let's say, people who belong to rich families, higher class of people, often commit the most crime. Cesar Lamborso is considered to be a father of criminology, although his point of view of studying criminals was not actually a good one. He was considered to be a racist because he too believed that most of the crimes that were committed was actually based on genetics. If someone belonged to a family of criminals, they would also be considered to be a criminal. So implication of these purely biological explanation was biological positivism. Biological positivism is something that someone is actually born criminal with the genes of a criminal, which we obviously know that that's not true at the time because we do have more studies to prove that study wrong. And determinism, opposite of free will. So it also says that some people commit crime opposite to their own free will, or someone is, or they're being influenced to do the crime, which also includes sterilization of indigenous women, which actually persists to this day in Canada. So some people who like colonized Canada, Britishers and other people, they were vandalizing indigenous women, and they were not allowed to get their own babies so that they do not grow their own population. They were not allowed to talk to their family members until they signed a contract for getting sterilized and not being able to reproduce more or produce more babies. And also, this theory has a lot of limitations because it fails to actually acknowledge the complex interaction between the human biology and the environment around us. So the early explanations for the biological explanations of crime, it fails to explain how our human biology actually interacts with the environment. And our biology is so dynamic and has evolved to shaped to be changed by our experience. So our human biology is designed in a certain way that it always changing according to the environment around us, what the things that we experience, the things that we feel, and the things that we see. Everything around us changes our biology with time. Just like humans used to be a lot taller back in the ages because there used to be a lot of the the context of the content of oxygen in the environment used to be a lot, so that was the reason humans used to be so tall, but that has changed with time. So in this way, taking this example, it actually explains us that how human biology changes with time. So current research indicates that neither genes nor environment cause crime. Presently, the studies that are going on explains that neither the genes are the reason why a person commits crime nor the environment. So we have studies for genetics. So let's talk about epigenetics. Person's genome remains the same, but its functions may change in response to the experience they gain. So a person's genes might remain same over time, passed on by their parents or any of their blood relations, but it might change to the experiences. Its functions might actually change according to the experiences that they get over time. Next thing is epigenome is changed by the environment to allow body to respond. Epigenome, as I told before, epigenome is something that changes over time. Sorry. That changes over time in response to the environment around us so that we can survive. Changes may be in neurotransmitter or hormonal function. Epigenetic changes can be passed on to the next generation. That is, they are transgenerational. For examples, institution in Romania, residential schools in North America. Systematic discrimination, not physical trait or ancestry, in part explains disproportionate representation of specific groups in the conflict with the law. And last but not least, certain factors can increase a person's predisposition for criminogenic behavior, although although it is still only a predisposition, a risk factor. So there are a lot of factors that might actually predisposition a person's neural cells for them to commit criminogenic behaviors. Although it's just a predisposition, but it's a risk factor. Adversity, abuse, starvation, and institutionalization can have a lifetime and transgenerational effect on a person's biology. Everything that we experience, whether it might be bullying, abuse, starvation, or even institutionalization, it all affects our brain in numerous ways. And any discussions over the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in conflict with law in Canada must consider the transgenerational effect of colonialism, including the residential schools experience. Thank you very much.